welcome back to my channel. If you are new, then I am on my way to 500 subscribers, so if you haven't already, please subscribe so I can get there and I can get past it. I really couldn't be bothered to do my hair today, so I am sorry for the mess. I thought I would start off this video first with a little life update. So guys, I finished first year. Yes, I did it. I got my last set of exam results last week. Across the whole year, I'm really happy with my result. Not to toot my own horn, but I did well in all the exams and all the assignments. Also, I was supposed to be on placement literally right now. I was supposed to do a 5-week placement in the hospital and then a 1-week placement in a school, but obviously that got cancelled because of Rona. So instead, I'm doing second year work just before the summer break. So I'm doing pharmacology and some like research method modules, so it's still a lot of work, but I'm getting there. Also, shout out to my friends, because without them we wouldn't have actually got through it, because first year was, I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't easy, so shout out to them. This video is going to be all about what you should know as a first year going into placement, which a lot of people have asked me to make a video about, so I'm literally just going to get straight into what I've got to say. So background into what I've done placement wise. So what I was supposed to do, like I kind of mentioned before, because Corona cancelled everything, so what I did was I had a 2-week induction placement in November on a ward, and then in February/March I had a 6-week placement on the same ward, and then in June I was supposed to do a 5-week placement on a different ward, and then a 1-week placement at a school. That's how first year was supposed to work. It's kind of just to give you like a bit of a feel for how things work on the ward, and just to kind of get used to like your basic skills and just feeling comfortable in an environment. That's why they put you in the same place in February as they did in November, so you're kind of comfortable with the environment and you kind of know what's going on. I'm not sure if all unis do it that way, but King's and I feel like a lot of other unis do have that kind of induction placement in November, so you have like 2 months to build up some skills, and then they kind of throw you in the deep end, which is good because it is so good for your learning. Like, it's crazy. In my 2-week placement we didn't really do much clinically, we just attended handover, and then we had a load of teaching sessions, so they would teach us about just like basic skills and like calculations and things like that, and it was like a half day, so it was 7:30 to 3:30 every single day. And then in the second week we got to do 3 shifts, I think it was it 3? Yeah, 3 full 12-hour shifts to kind of like get a taste of it, and then obviously we went back to uni and then went back in February to the hospital. The ward that I was placed on, so the only placement I've ever had because of the cancellation, was on a general peds ward, so there was a bit of everything, which was really good for my learning, but the main things that they focused on were hematology, respiratory illnesses, and oncology. That's it. I don't know why I forgot that, but yeah. So there were a lot of people coming in with the flu, leukemia, anemia, diabetes. Like, there was a bit of everything, which was really interesting. Placement was really good for me. I felt like I learned so much. All the nurses were really nice, the doctors, all other members of like the multidisciplinary team were all really nice, really kind of accommodating and welcoming. A lot of them were quite young as well, so I kind of felt comfortable being around a lot of like younger people. When you come onto your placement, they've changed it now since my cohort is the first year for the new nursing program. So instead of just having a mentor, you have an assessor and a supervisor, and basically your assessor is the person who kind of signs off all your skills and kind of make sure you're on track, and then your supervisor, you get allocated a supervisor, but you might not always work with them depending on the shift pattern. So whoever you end up working with that day is basically your supervisor, and they can write you feedback, they can give you comments and just kind of teach you things to do. You also get a book called a PAD. A PAD stands for a practice assessment document, which I have in here, and you get that given to you, and that is where you write all your reflections whilst you're on placement. It's where you get all your feedback from the nurses and your assessor and your supervisor. It's where you can get some patients or patient parents to give you feedback, which is really good. and it's where you sign off your hours. So every day you have to get whoever is available or whoever you work with to sign off your hours to prove that you were actually there. The pad is quite confusing to understand before you actually go out on placement. Like, as much as they explain it to you, it is quite difficult to get your head around, so have a good read of it before, and your uni will probably give you as much information as they can anyway on how it works and what you're supposed to fill in, because you have to fill in all the right things, otherwise you won't be able to, you know, pass the placement. Also, you have an OAR, which is like an ongoing record of achievement. I'm not sure if all unis do the same thing. I think it's like a London uni thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but you get that filled in at the end of each placement by your assessor, so you've got to make sure that you know where they are at the right time. Also, in your pad you have 3 interviews that you have to do: your initial interview, your midpoint, and your final, which is basically tracking your progress throughout. So you've got to make sure that you do them at the right times. So for example, if you have a 6-week placement, do your initial interview in the first week, your midpoint in the 3rd week, and your final in the last week. Don't leave it to the last minute, because the nurses are busy too, so you can't do everything on your own terms, so be mindful of that. In terms of the actual routine and getting used to being on placement, I'm not gonna lie, it is a shock. If you're not used to kind of waking up ridiculously early and working and being on your feet for hours and hours and hours, then it will be a shock to you. Like, I wake up, if you haven't already seen my day in the life video when I'm on shift, I wake up at about 5:40, come home at like 9. So it is a long day. You have to be able to prepare yourself, and if you have back-to-back shifts, you have to be able to make sure that you're not too burnt out, because it is a lot, and after the double shifts you will be exhausted. So I think it's a bit of a given. Go to bed early before a shift, depending on if it's a day or a night. In my university, we're not supposed to do night shifts in first year. Some people had to, but I didn't have to, thank God. So for a day shift, go to bed early so you can kind of prepare yourself for the day ahead. Eat a really good dinner the night before. Say you have a double shift that's like Wednesday, Thursday, you've done your Wednesday shift, you come home, obviously you're exhausted and you will come home quite late. Just shower, eat, chill for a bit and go straight to bed, because you're going to be exhausted and you have to kind of get some energy to go through the next 12 hours on the next day. So that is something that is really, really important, just to get some rest. Even though you don't get much, anything is something. Also, a really good thing is to plan your meals. So what I didn't do it all the time because it's kind of long, but before the week I would obviously have my timetable. I'd know which days I was going in, so I would make like a really big, especially if I had a double shift, it was really useful. I'd make like a really big bowl of like pasta of whatever sort, and then I would pack it into little containers and just take it with me, and then you can either heat it up or keep it cold, because obviously there's a kitchen, and that saved me money and time going to the shop as well. So that was really, really useful, just to kind of grab that out of the fridge in the morning, fill up my water bottle. Get one of them chilly water bottles, the ones, I'm gonna insert a picture, the ones that keep your water cold all day, because they will save your life. Obviously you're gonna have to refill your bottle because you'll be there for 12 hours, but they keep it so cold and it's so refreshing when you're just tired. So definitely invest in one of those. In terms of being organised, definitely pack your bag the night before. Make sure you've kind of got your new set of uniform, obviously, because you're not going to wear the same uniform twice. So put your used uniform in the wash, or just put it away to wash it eventually. Get a new uniform, put it in your bag. Whatever you need in your bag, just put it in your bag so you can just get up and grab it. I would also recommend just shower before the shift, because if you're one of those people that likes to shower in the evening, just don't. Shower in the morning as well as in the evening, because otherwise you'll go the whole day just feeling sticky. Like, I've never done that, because I like to shower in the morning and the evening when I have a shift, just to make myself feel more awake. So definitely do that. In terms of actually being on placement, when you go into placement, obviously you get to the hospital or wherever you are, you get changed, and then you go into handover, and handover on most wards is at 7:30. Get there before the time, so you know you're not rushing in looking like an idiot. Look at the handover sheet. If you know who you're working with, or they'll tell you after, pay close attention to what the nurse in charge says about the patients that you're going to be working with. If there's anything you don't understand, like medications or abbreviations, highlight them and look them up, because that will help you so much, especially if it's like medications that you have to kind of draw up for your patient and you don't know what you're giving. That's kind of a bit weird. So just teach yourself along the way, or just highlight it to remember and then ask questions to your supervisor and they'll be able to obviously answer them. Also, just for first years, just remember that they're not going to ask you too much. Your first day placement, if you tell them like, oh, I'm first year, this is my first placement, they're not going to expect you to know everything. They're not going to expect you to be drawing up all these medicines and giving injections and just, you know, ridiculous things like that. They're going to know where your level is. They've been through it themselves, so they'll know what you're capable of, and you can tell them what you already know, so you can assist them with things, or you can say, oh, I really want to practice doing this. So don't be afraid of that, because they're not going to throw you in the deep end, because at the end of the day they've got to think about the safety of the patients, and if they're making you do something that you can't do, then that's just problematic. And also, if a nurse ever tries to ask you to do something that you're not allowed to do, or something that you don't know how to do, so for example, if a nurse was to say, oh, do you want to do this injection, and this is your first placement and it's your first week, don't. Even if you want to, even if you know how to do it and you've done it in the lab, don't. Because if it goes wrong, you're in trouble, the nurse is in trouble, but more so you're in trouble, because you know your boundaries, you know what you can and can't do. So don't be stupid. Don't be afraid to ask questions. No question is a stupid question. If you're curious about something, you're there to learn, so ask all the questions you can. If the nurse doesn't know the answer, ask someone else, or work things out for yourself. Do your own, like look it up if you have to. Also, if you feel confident doing something, don't be afraid to do it. If they say to you, oh, do you want to do, like, I'm not sure if you want to do this, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm totally fine doing that. Like, if you want to go do obs on someone by yourself, as in with no help, then do it, because that's really good for your learning. It's really good for your practice, because that's something you're going to need to do every day of your life as a nurse, and multiple times a day, so you need to know how to do it properly. So really just try and get as much practice in as you can for what is within your scope of practice, because that is really important to just, I can't stress it enough. Don't do anything you can't do or you're not supposed to do. Even if you think you can, just don't, because you're going to get in trouble, and you don't want to get in trouble, especially when it comes to people's lives and children's lives, especially if you're doing peds. Then, and going on from, like, if you're curious about things or you don't know answers to things, a lot of the time there will be like moments in the day when you don't have anything to do, whether that be because there's nothing that you can physically do yourself because it's too advanced for you, or if it's just a really quiet day and you've got patients that don't need much attention in terms of like medication, observations and things like that. Then just take the time to just sit. If there's a free computer, go and look stuff up, or sit in the back and go on your phone and look things up. And I always carry a notebook. I have a little folder here which I keep my pad, my OAR and my placement notebook, where I write all sorts of illnesses that I want to know more about, all medications. So all the medications that I helped to prepare, or that any of my patients were taking, I would look them up, I would ask what they were for. With a lot of the conditions, I didn't know what they were, so there were quite a few people that came onto my ward with Kawasaki disease, and when I first saw the first patient with that, I had no idea what it was, so I looked that up. Also, a lot of different children with cancer that came onto the ward, they obviously, every different type of leukemia that it tended to be on this ward have different names, so I wanted to know which part of the blood they affected, or if it was just a different type of cancer. So there were a couple of kids that had brain cancers, but they were obviously very different, so I wanted to know about them. Just create a list of those. Just be curious and just try to utilize all the time to learn and do what you can. Also, a good thing to do as well is to kind of learn your way around the hospital. So if anyone asks someone to go down to pharmacy or to go to x-ray with a patient or something like that, just do it, because you'll find your way, you'll know where everything is, you'll get to see a load of really cool things. Don't be afraid to ask if there's any procedures going on, because if there are, then you can actually go and see them. I went to see a bronchoscopy when I was on my last placement in March, which is where they basically put a camera into your lungs, and this was for a patient who had cystic fibrosis, and it was so interesting. You literally just sit there like, but it is really, really interesting just to get like to see a different side of things, of like how other things in the hospital work. So if you want to go and see an operation, don't be afraid to ask if you want to see any of those things. It is perfectly fine. They're not going to judge you, because you're just trying to do something with your time, which is good, because at the end of the day you are supernumerary, so you don't need to be on the ward all the time. If there are study sessions going on, if there are procedures going on, you can leave the ward and go, as long as you're not escaping from the hospital to go do something. Everything that you do within the hospital that is good for your learning counts towards your hours, so it's fine. So yeah, I feel like that's all I really wanted to say in this video about preparing for placement and knowing what to do for placement as a first year. I will probably make more of these videos. I'll make one for second year once I get there, I'll make one for third year once I get there as well. I'll probably make other ones about specific things to do with placement as well, so a lot of things that I haven't touched in this video I will eventually touch up on. But if anyone has any questions about how placement works and that are more specific questions, then feel free to ask. So yeah, that is it for this video. Please thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.